So, you're starting a new campaign and you've decided you don't want to play an optimal character. You don't care about picking the best spells or the best feats. You want to play a character purely for flavor. And part of that flavor comes from a flaw. Maybe you're a fighter with low constitution, or a wizard whose highest stat is their charisma. In most systems, this is pretty easy to do. Roll your stats, plug them in, and boom, you've got whatever character you're going for. But in Pathfinder 2e, it's not quite that simple. You can absolutely make a flawed character, but the system doesn't make it easy for you. In fact, everything within the system, from character creation to combat, sort of works against flawed characters in some really obtuse ways. And these problems are far more than just having bad stats. The game itself seems like it wants to reject flawed characters like white blood cells attacking bacteria. So, how do we make a flawed character in a system designed around godlike powerhouse heroes? Howdy, my name is Nonat, and I'm here today to answer that exact question. I love playing flawed characters. It's not always easy to do, but these weak, flawed characters have been some of the most fun and memorable I've ever gotten to play. I once played a ranger in D&D 3.5 whose highest ability score was a 12 in dexterity. Here's the character sheet to prove it. Now, this is an extreme example of a flawed character, and he was slaughtered by some direwolves about 4 sessions into the campaign. But I still remember him vividly to this day. Compared to some of my other characters, I'm more carefully constructed, and I couldn't tell you anything about him. So how do we make a character like this in Pathfinder? Before we dive headlong into the content, please consider dropping a like and subscribing to the channel if you want to see more Pathfinder 2e content. I'd also like to thank all of the patrons you see on screen for supporting me and everything I do. If you'd like to learn more about the Nonat1's Patreon, stick around to the end of the video. In Pathfinder 2e, making a character as weak as this just won't work. The system is designed around your character being incredible at the things they do. This is most clearly reflected by the proficiency system and the massive bonuses you end up rolling with at higher levels. The first challenge is actually going to be making a flawed character. When you make a character in Pathfinder 2e, no matter what you pick, you will get the same number of boosts and flaws as every other character, leading to the same net gain of ability scores. Sure, some ancestries may come without a flaw, but they also get 1 less boost, making the total the same. So how do we get around this? What's the solution? Well, the first option is to use the Voluntary Flaw optional rule. If there's a specific score you want your character to struggle with for story purposes, consider taking 2 voluntary flaws. This allows you to reduce 2 different scores by -2, and then increase any score by +2. This does mean that if you just want to drop a score by 2, you could, say, reduce strength and dexterity by 2, and then boost dexterity back up, meaning you just took a -2 to strength. Alternatively, you could take a flaw in both and then make something else really good. You can do this as many times as you like, but you cannot reduce a single score below 8 or increase a single score above 18. And obviously you can homebrew this and do it however you like, but I'm going to be trying to stick to rules as written as much as possible for this video. So there's your first option, using the voluntary flaws, but I do have some personal issues with this one. First off, it feels weird to be making a conscious choice to make my character weaker. Unlike random stats through something like dice, you have to consciously say, yes please, I would like my intelligence to be lower, thank you. And that doesn't feel that good. When you roll random stats with dice, however, even if they're low, it wasn't your choice to make them low. Rather, you look at them and say, okay, that's what this character is like. I didn't choose this, but I want to play with it. It doesn't feel like your fault that the numbers are low, and rather than reducing these numbers on purpose, you can simply take the handicap that the dice dealt you and play with that. Luckily, Pathfinder 2e does have an alternative rule for playing a character with dice-generated ability scores, and it works exactly like D&D 3.5 and 5e. Roll 4 6-sided die, take the 3 highest, and do that 6 times, and assign them however you want. The ability boost and flaw system still applies, but it works a little bit differently. Basically, you get one less free boost from your ancestry and your background, and you do not get a class boost or 4 free boosts like usual. Keep in mind that no score can be boosted over 18. Following this method, on average, you'll be adding 6 more points on top of what you rolled and then subtracting 2 from a flaw. Overall, this is still going to lead you to some fairly above average scores. It is possible, though, using this method to have a few single-digit or overall low average stats. And there we have it, a successful, flawed character. We're done, right? We can play? Well, no. In fact, things are about to get a lot more confusing from here on. You see, the reason that flawed characters work so well in a game like Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition is because it uses something called bounded accuracy. This is going to get complicated, so let me explain. Bounded accuracy is the concept that everything in the world is bound by a strict range of difficulty. Something with a DC of 5 will always be very easy, and something with a DC of 25 will always be very hard. This means that, regardless of the player's level, the DCs don't need to change all that much. Something with a DC of 20 is still going to be difficult, whether you're level 2 or level 12. This is because of the numerical progression of D&D 5e characters. 5e's proficiency system maxes out at a +6 bonus. This means the difference between a level 1 and a level 20 character, depending on how they allocate their ability score increases, will be at most +7 or +8. A level 1 character with a +4 to athletics will really struggle to succeed at a DC 20 challenge. However, a level 20 character with a +11 to athletics will still only have about a 55% chance of success. Both characters can succeed, the level 20 is simply more likely. This is why a -1 or -2 penalty isn't such a big deal in D&D 5e. If an average task is a DC 15, then almost anyone at least has a chance to accomplish it regardless of their bonus. Now, let's take this idea and move it over to Pathfinder 2e. At first, you might think it works the same way. -1 or -2 penalty isn't a big deal. After all, DCs may go up with level, but so does your proficiency bonus. Every time you level up, your proficiency bonus increases by 1. If both systems functioned the same way, then yes, this would be true, and a -1 penalty would not be a big deal. But there is a single rule within Pathfinder 2e that really breaks the case, and that is the critical success and critical failure system. Armor class in Pathfinder 2e isn't about not getting hit. It's about not getting crit. This is the most important line I've ever heard in regards to Pathfinder 2e. For those of you who are unaware, you don't just critically succeed on a natural 20. If you ever beat the DC of a task by 10 or more, it is a critical success. Same thing applies to attack rolls and beating your target's AC by 10 or more. This means that even if the monster only rolled a 15, if they beat your AC by 10, that is still a critical hit, and you are still taking double damage. That's why a simple -1 means so much. You're not just one less likely to hit, you're also one less likely to crit. You're also one more likely to be hit, and one more likely to be crit. And with how heavy Pathfinder 2e is around critical hits, that is incredibly debilitating. If your lovely, flavorful, flawed character has a really low dexterity and thus a really poor armor class, there is a high probability they can be critically hit by an enemy of the same level and knocked down in one hit. Let's look at an example. You're a level 1 wizard, and you want to play the classic, old, frail, but powerful glass cannon, so you dump your constitution, strength, and dexterity. Let's say you're going extreme with this. Strength and dexterity are an 8, and constitution is only a 10. This is really, really rough to play with, but also super fun. Wizards can't wear any armor, and since you have a +0 to dexterity, you only get your proficiency bonus to armor class, leading to a whopping 13. Your wizard is then approached by a level 1 goblin commando, an equal leveled enemy. He happens to have a +8 to hit with his horse chopper, meaning he only needs to roll a 5 to hit you for 1d8 plus 3 damage. This also means he only needs to roll a 15 to critically hit you for 2d8 plus 6 damage. And he can attack again on the same turn at a -5 penalty, meaning he can still hit you by rolling a 10 or higher on his second attack. On average, you're taking 2d8 plus 6 damage that turn, and your frail old wizard with a -1 to Constitution probably only has about 13 or 14 hit points. Chances are, you are down on the first turn of the first combat against a level 1 enemy. And these problems tend to only get worse as you get higher in level. So, what's the fix for this? Is Pathfinder 2e just completely unplayable for flawed characters? Well, yes and no. This game system is designed around overpowered heroes fighting overpowered enemies and just barely scraping by through strategy and some luck. Throwing a weaker character into the mix really makes you rely more on that luck factor to survive. Is this a bad thing? Well, that's up to you. If you really want a challenging experience for your flawed character, Pathfinder 2e is a really good place to have it. Now, if you want to play a group of flawed characters and still have an even level of challenge, that's going to get a lot more difficult because the system is not designed around that gameplay concept. Paizo has admitted in the Game Mastery Guide that Pathfinder 2e is about heroes growing from humble origins to world-shattering strength, and the enemies they face need to be just as tough as they are, otherwise there will be no fight. If the monsters weren't as tough as they are, they would have no chance of keeping up with the more strategically min-maxed characters, and those adventures would be incredibly easy. So, can you play a flawed character in Pathfinder 2e? Yes, of course you can. You can do anything in Pathfinder 2e, but keep in mind that it will take some effort from both the player and the GM. If done correctly, a flawed character could be an absolute blast to play in this game, especially if they excel really, really well in specific niche areas. With that in mind, if your whole group is playing flawed characters and you decide to take on Age of Ashes without changing anything, you will have a TPK within the first few hours. So there's my 2 cents on the matter. Can you do it? Yes. Is it easy? No. Is it fun? Absolutely. If you can put the work into it, playing flawed characters in any system is a blast. Just be aware that this system, Pathfinder 2e, is about big heroes fighting big monsters. And if you choose to play Ted, the average farmer, be aware of the challenges that will come with that. Thank you all so much for watching. I want to give one more huge shout out to my Patreon supporters. If you would like to support me as well, there is a link in the description and the pinned comment below that'll take you to the Known At Once Patreon. Just so you know, any pledge of $10 or higher will get you access to all of my custom homebrew. We currently have 8 new subclasses, a new archetype, a new spell, and 8 brand new alchemical items. If you enjoyed the video, please do leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps me grow, which helps me make better content for all of you guys. And be sure to leave a comment down below telling me what you thought about this video. Tell me what you think about my cool new mic. It's under the shirt, which is so weird. I don't have to deal with this thing anymore, and it's awkward echoing. It's awesome. Hopefully there wasn't a lot of scratching. I'm still playing around with this, so if there was a little bit of that's why. So thank you all so very much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and until next time, Known At Ones.